Welcome to turn one, people. It's not welcome back anymore. Well, it will be next week, but for now, welcome to turn one. My name is Rob. As you well know, we've been doing this for about a year now. The name change, for those of you who don't know, it was mainly driven by, obviously, I started this thing off on YouTube about a year ago. Wanted to do many sports, kind of touch on a lot of different things, but I quickly realised, the season did help. If it was a boring season, it might not have gone this way. Kind of realised the passion was definitely Formula One over the others. As much as I watched the others, Formula One was definitely the one that's going to take over. And I think dedicating it, giving it a name, making it its own entity, I think was important. So 2022, we're coming in hot, as you've seen. A lot of content going out, a lot more content to come. I'm kind of learning the whole YouTube thing, editing and what to include and how to include it. So there's going to be plenty more. So subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Twitter's going to be a new thing. I'll put a link in the description. We use Twitter now and again. I don't repost on Twitter, but I think for Formula One, certainly to reach new people and to kind of give more updates, because you'll get a video every week or a couple of videos every week, hopefully. And it will be kind of obviously in this long form. But I think Twitter, if you follow me on Twitter, it'll be more kind of reactionary stuff, more opinions at the time, rather than carefully watch videos here and put it on YouTube and you get it 3 days after the fact. So obviously Abu Dhabi, I'm gonna try not to mention Abu Dhabi too much. Abu Dhabi, things like that. That'd have been quite funny to have my thoughts on in real time. So yeah, wanted to be fresh, wanted to start off a new channel. Got my new little board here. Fresh new name, tell your mates. A lot of people have done that already. Thank you very much for helping me branch out a little bit. Gonna try and hit 100 subscribers, then 200, then 300, then 400, and keep going from there. So this year, if you want to check out last year's stuff, it is in a playlist. It is in a playlist. I put it for Formula 1 2021. It's all there. The previous stuff, you'd have to do some digging. I might actually one day go back and timestamp everything, or just crop it all up. But either way, I basically covered the whole of last season in my videos last year. And then about halfway through the season, I started doing individual videos. So if you want to go back and check it out, do. If you want to go check out my season review, it's a long one, so pack a lunch. But it was a lot of fun to do, mainly because I get to watch all the races again, which I've done kind of intermittently. I don't know what you guys are doing, but I've just watched random races like Saudi Arabia, and I've watched Abu Dhabi actually about 4 times now. And it's just still, it doesn't get any less crazy. I'm not going to talk about Abu Dhabi. I've done that to death, and I think we do need to move on in terms of what I'm going to bring you. Obviously, the FIA are doing their thing, and we'll leave them to that. So to wrap up 2021, because I was going to do an individual video, but I thought I'll do this podcast, whatever you want to call this, chat, and kind of wrap up last year, like properly, and look forward to 2022, because a lot's going on. If you're following me, you probably know there's quite a lot going on. So 2021, I wanted to do a lot of top 10s, but I thought some of them aren't as relevant now, especially now we're into February. But the one I wanted to do was my top 10 best drivers. Now, any top 10 list, any best driver list, any greatest all time, it's all subjective. And it's all based on what you think and how you see it. It's not really a statistical thing. It can be. Obviously, statistics do influence it, but it's more the eye test. And then obviously, okay, who won races, who did what, who outperformed what car. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of my top 10 best performing drivers. This is just best performing. This isn't talent. This isn't where they finished in the Drivers' Championship. This is how well I think they performed over the course of the season. Number 10. I'm going with young Georgie Russell. George Russell, he started off the season really, really well, and with the Williams car. Obviously, he had the crash with Bottas and Imola. That didn't help him. But I think, if anything, it was probably a mix of him doing well, continues doing well, and Bottas not doing well at all, which kind of pushed his stock up and up and up. Russell got P2 in Belgium, in qualifying, outpaced Lewis Hamilton in the wet, which is very hard to do. That kind of pushed him almost over the edge. And then Bottas's poor performances, coupled with, I think Russell got another P3 in Russia, again in wet, dry conditions. So those two things put together basically put him in the Mercedes seat. Bottas was out, But then after that, he kind of dipped. So Russell, by other years' comparable standards, wasn't as good. But getting P2 in Belgium and getting P3 in Russia in qualifying was enough for me to put him at 10. Number 9, Esteban Ocon. Now, I like Esteban Ocon. I don't... Not that I didn't like him before, but I was always thinking he's a bit nice. He needs to just win races or do something impressive, because nice guys in Formula 1 just don't get anywhere. Oh, he's a nice guy. He's a great personality. I personally don't care. Just win races. Be good. Obviously, be a nice guy as well if it helps. But the point is, you're in Formula 1 to win races. You're not there to be a nice guy. So win races, and then the nice guy stuff comes second. He did win in Hungary, and the Hungary win, it will get overlooked, but it was really impressive. I mean, granted, everyone else was out, but it was him versus Vettel, who's won 4 World Drivers' Championships and 53 races. So, see, he's been there before, Sebastian Vettel, especially in difficult conditions. You chuck Esteban Ocon at the front, which he's never been, and he led the whole race, held off Vettel. Obviously, Hamilton was charging, he must have known that as well. So he still won the race, and then that was in an Alpine car as well. So, super impressive from Ocon. Didn't do a whole lot else, granted, so I can't put him any higher, but it was impressive to be at number 9. One place above, I'm putting Fernando Alonso. The reason why I'm putting him above someone who's won an actual race is because Alonso was better throughout the season. Wheel to wheel, he was better throughout the season. Like Silverstone, he had an amazing start. And generally speaking, he had a kind of a slowish start to the season. And then I think it was Spain he started to pick up. I think he got I think he came 7th in Spain. Started to pick things up a little bit. And obviously, podium in Qatar. I think generally speaking, he drove at a higher level than Ocon. Ocon won a race, and this is why I kind of preface this whole thing by statistics aren't going to be the main driver of this ranking. So Alonso, for me, drove at a higher level than Ocon. They both did amazingly well, given the whole context of the whole season, and given that they probably didn't develop their car at all. But I'm putting Alonso at 8. This is going to be a controversial one, I think. Oh, I know it is going to be. Number 7, Valtteri Bottas. The reason why I'm putting Valtteri Bottas at 7, it goes to my other thing. I've got a sort of a thought process, certainly when it comes to head coaches in sport. If you're in the best team, or if you're coaching the best team, there's like, okay, granted you're in the best team, you got the best car, or what, best car, second best car. You've still got to drive the car to a decent level of performance. You've still got to coach the team full of superstars. So PSG, Man City, whoever you want, Barcelona, Pep Guardiola is a good example. Like, you've still got to drive, you've still got to perform. It's all well and good, you've got the best car. You can stick me in needs a bad example. You can stick any driver in a Mercedes. Luca Badoa was in a Ferrari. Giancarlo Fisichella was in a Ferrari. They're not winning races. Valtteri Bottas has been a Mercedes for however long. When he wins races, he doesn't, just because he doesn't win races all the time, which means it's obviously very difficult, or he's not a very good driver, which he clearly is a good driver. So Bottas winning in Turkey is more, given the other people on this list so far, the other 3 on the list, you're telling me that, firstly, Bottas got 4 pole positions, beat Hamilton numerous occasions in qualifying, was on the podium 11 times, so 11 times out of 22, 50% isn't that good for a car that should be winning every single race, or at least definitely podium every single race. You got a lot of bad luck, but for me, the achievement of the year, beating Max Verstappen in the wet in Turkey, holding a nerve, winning that race. He got pole position there. He got pole position in the sprint. He started on pole position for the main race in Brazil. And obviously he got pole position by virtue of Hamilton going backwards in Turkey as well. So achievement-wise, he can't get overlooked. Like, granted, if you put Alonso, to be honest, if you put Alonso, Ocon or Russell in that car, would they have done better? I mean, a lot of you probably saying yes. They may well have done. But the point is, they weren't in the car, and you've got to take it with what it is. You've got to say, right, okay, Valtteri Bottas in this Mercedes car. He outpaced Lewis Hamilton a few times. He won a race against Max Verstappen while the Red Bulls were doing really well, and he managed to get on the podium plenty of times. And he obviously got pole position in Mexico as well, right at the end of the season. So it's hard to overlook. I mean, I'm not really here for the Valtteri Bottas slander, to be fair. Like, it's all well and good. Like, when you watch back old seasons, having two apex drivers, like, if you had Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton on a team, it'd be an absolute nightmare. You need, like, in a team, Formula 1 is a team game. You need to have two drivers who are going to work together and get the most points for the team. Valtteri Bottas has done that. So I'm not here for the Bottas slander. You can't have two Lewis Hamiltons in the team. And Bottas, for what he was, yeah, sure, win a couple more races, but maybe if he won a couple more races, in terms of the Mercedes standpoint, maybe Hamilton would have won less and the team wouldn't have been as strong. I think the dynamic of Mercedes worked well because you had Hamilton winning the majority of the time, and when Hamilton wasn't winning, Bottas could come P2 or win the race, or certainly put pressure on. He wasn't doing it consistently enough, but yeah, I've gone on a bit of Bottas tangent, but I actually, yeah, I'm a fan of Bottas and hope he does well in Alfa Romeo. P6. This is the first of the drivers who I think who I would give a gold star to. Charlie Leclerc, P6. Now, he did get beaten in the Drivers' Championship by everybody else above him, apart from one person. Bit of a spoiler there. So that's why he's at the bottom, and that's the metric, because all these guys finished kind of close to within each other. It's hard to say, he was better. Just on that, you need to the differentiation between these guys will be the finishing position. So they all did roughly the same kind of achievement. They got the same kind of achievements in the year. It's not something that you could be too harsh on either one of these next four. But Leclerc, 2 pole positions back to back. Monaco was obviously very harsh, and Baku, Hamilton gave him a slipstream, but he still got there. Obviously, he didn't get to start the race in Monaco, and then Hamilton and Verstappen took him in 2 laps. In Baku, he only got one podium, which is why he's in P6. And the reason why he's above Bottas, after all that I was talking about previously, is I feel like Leclerc drove at a higher level. He made some mistakes, but I feel like he drove at a higher level than Bottas this last season. That's my feeling. I feel like he drove at a high level, and he got 2 pole positions in a car that was nowhere near. And generally speaking, he's a better driver than Valtteri Bottas, which doesn't mean in 2021 he should deserve to be higher. But all these factors combined, it was a close one. But I've got Charles Leclerc, and obviously Silverstone, which he could have won the race. Well, if Hamilton got a bigger penalty, he could have definitely won the race. And if his car didn't cut out, he could have probably won the race as well. Because Hamilton only got him close to the end, even with the penalties and with all the engine stuff. So Leclerc had a good one. Leclerc, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on Ferrari this year. I'll get on to why, but he's gonna need to be at the top of his game. P5, Pierre Gasly. Now, Pierre Gasly he's an enigma, to be perfectly honest. I think Gasly is, on paper, he's in that group. Like, if you look at just results and qualifying performances and how his car's like, if you said to me, no, all these different Ferrari, McLaren, Perez, Bottas, Gasly, Russell, you're looking at them all, you're like, yeah, I mean, the top guys, they're all in a group together. But we've seen Gasly in Red Bull. Granted, he was younger, so it's kind of harsh to just paint him with that brush and say, no, he's, that's the kind of driver he's going to be from now on. He has obviously improved, and he's doing unbelievable things at AlphaTauri, who are, I mean, that's sixth best team. I mean, overall sixth best. I mean, maybe even seventh, depending on how you rank all these other guys. But they're not one of the top teams. They're not one of the better midfield teams. But Gasly is always in there. P4, P5, always up there in the mix. He got a podium in Baku. I think he got P2. Yeah, I think he got P2 in Baku. P3, one of those. He's on the podium anyway, because obviously Hamilton's sent it down the outside without the brake magic. So his performances, he's in there. He's the only guy in there who's in my top 10 anyway, in the higher reaches of it, who are in there absolutely because of his just pure performance, his actual driving, not so much his results, because the results were amazing for the car he's in, but not amazing, period, because obviously Bottas was in the podium 11 times. So for an AlphaTauri car, given that Tsunoda was, rookie, but he was all the way at the back most of the time and making mistakes, Gasly was so consistent throughout. And hopefully there's a driver change up at the end of, I think, because a lot of contracts are out at the end of this year, or next year, end of next year. end of 2023. A lot of cars, because there's going to be a big shake-up. Once everyone knows what the cars are like and what teams are where, there's going to be a lot of driver switch-arounds to the good teams, and everyone's going to try and get a new seat. Hopefully Gasly leaves the Red Bull thing, because as long as Verstappen's at Red Bull, Gasly will never succeed at Red Bull. I would probably say that's a fact, because knowing Christian Horner, he likes his one guy, his protege. That he's always done that. He's always liked his one driver since they became good. 2006. Well, since Vettel came in 2007. No, 8. 8 or 9. One of those two. 8 or 9. I think it was actually 9, because Vettel won a race at Toro Rosso in 2008. Since Vettel came along, Vettel was his guy. Then you had the Ricciardo and the Kvyat bit. It's like, I think Ricciardo was kind of his guy, and Verstappen came in. He's the guy. So as long as Verstappen's in that team, Gasly should never go there. The only reason why Russell, comparatively, has gone to Mercedes is because Hamilton will be gone in 2 or 3 years. So he can go there and just learn, and then be the guy. You can't have two, as I've said before, you can't have two number one guys in a team. It just doesn't really work. Someone will be the number one, and once that other number one is number two, if you're following, he's not going to like it anymore. So that's my opinion on Pierre. I would like to see him. I mean, I'd take him at Mercedes, take him anywhere. Just give him a good car, and let's see if he's really about it, or if he's going to be one of those guys who really performs when the pressure's off, but when it's on, he kind of wilts away. Hopefully that's not him, because I do like Pierre Gasly. Top 4 have all done outstandingly well. P4, Carlito, young Carlos Sainz. Now he's outperformed. He came P5 in the championship, so he did beat a lot of he beat everyone else. He's best of the rest. If I'm getting those maths right, yeah, best of the rest. So nobody beat him that wasn't in a Mercedes or a Red Bull. So he was technically, as they did before. I don't know if you remember back in the day, the Formula 1 point, was they called it 1.5, which was the best of the rest outside of the top teams. I think at that point they had the 3 teams. Cause I think it was they had Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes. And I think Hulkenberg won it one year. I feel like it was like 2016 or something, 17. They used to do Formula 1.5 world champion because the top teams were so good. So Sainz is essentially that, because obviously Red Bull and Mercedes were so far ahead. Sainz, 4 podiums. He could have won. There's so many races he could have won. I mean, for sure. I mean, well, Russia, he started. I think he started P3 in Russia. Had a good early start. And obviously Abu Dhabi, he was technically P3 on the road. If he was allowed to race everybody else, he might have had a chance of being better. So Sainz was consistent, given that he just jumped from McLaren into that Ferrari team, which is Charles Leclerc's team. He really outperformed his own position, given that it's a brand new team. And as you see with Daniel Ricciardo, who actually didn't make this list at all, goes to McLaren. It doesn't really work the same way. You can't just jump teams and it's lights out and away we go. It's not really the same thing. But Sainz really did that, and I was impressed by Sainz. And hopefully, if Ferrari are good, he could be the. I mean, both of those two guys. I keep talking about the 2 number 1 drivers. If they get a good car, Ferrari, watch this Sainz and Leclerc thing, because neither of them two. It's all well and good. This is what I keep saying. I don't know if I keep saying it on here. I keep saying it privately anyway. It's all well and good when you're. I'm going to detract from this. I'm going to go on a little rant. It's all well and good when you're in the midfield or at the back, and you've got 2 teammates, Norris, Ricciardo, Norris, Sainz. It's all jokey, paddy, bromance, all that kind of stuff. When you start winning, and when you have to keep winning, that goes out the window. Look at Rosberg and Hampton. They were childhood friends. As soon as they got a sniff of winning, out the window. Because you can't be best mates with someone you're racing at 200 miles an hour with. Because once you stick a nose up there, you're like, screw this guy. I don't care. You don't go, oh, there you go, mate. There you go, Lando. I know we're all mates and that. Off you go and go win the race. It's not going to happen. Sainz and Leclerc, when the pressure gets cranked up, which everyone is guilty of this, absolutely everyone from top to bottom. But when the pressure goes up, that nice guy, happy stuff goes away, and they are ruthless. Especially Leclerc. Leclerc is a savage, because when he had that good car, in, I think it was 2017 or 18, when he's at the front, he really is a mean, in a nice way, proper mean dude. So watch for, if Ferrari are good, watch out for Sainz and Leclerc, because those two are going to be the ones that are going to, if every team gets better and they're fighting at the front, there's like 4 or 5 teams, Ferrari could have a problem because those two guys aren't used to being at the very front consistently, especially Sainz. And when the threat of a win is on the line, watch how everybody changes. And that's why Mercedes, it's kind of good to watch them. Red Bull kind of started it really this year. Well, the new version of Red Bull, obviously. If you go back to 2010 to 2013, you see what the old Red Bull was like. When the pressure's on, everybody's different. It's basically when the lights turned on. It's like, okay, now it's real. Because before it's all fine, you're in the dark. You know, back in P7, P8, 45 seconds behind Hamilton, it doesn't really matter how. Of course, you're going to be happy and jovial and talk to the cameras and stuff. Pressure gets ramped up, especially if you see how Mercedes and Red Bull both kind of deteriorated throughout the season when the pressure really went up. Especially Mercedes, to be honest. Especially towards the end with Toto and that. Watch how things change, and I think it's more of a caution. It's not even a negative. It's just a cautionary tale. It's kind of my insight into what I've seen. Watch how things change, especially with Ferrari. Ferrari are the ones to watch. I think everyone's talking about it. It's probably just a nice rumour because everyone wants to see the red car at the front, which even I've never been a Ferrari fan, but I would quite like to see Ferrari back up at the front because it's classic. It's red cars, Ferrari, it's Italy, it's history. So watch this space for those guys. P3, Lando Norris. He surprised me a lot, and I'm liking a lot of what I've seen from Lando Norris. Because at the beginning I thought he was really, I mean he's a nice guy, he's not a scary imposing dude, he's quite a soft dude, and I was kind of worried that wouldn't work in Formula 1, but he's definitely curated a little bit of an edge to him, especially Russia really helped him, I think. You know, throwing his toys out the pram and having a meltdown, relatively speaking, having a meltdown in Russia, losing to Hamilton there, really is going to help him going forward, because now he knows what it's like at the sharp end with the greatest drivers and leading the race in difficult conditions. He's going to be so much better because of that situation. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Lando Norris does going forward. Obviously, he got pole position in that Russian race. He should have won that race. He should have won the race. He should have just pitted and got his tyres and held on and won that race. And obviously, he came quite a close second to Ricciardo in Monza, and he got a few more podiums. I forget where. I don't think it was Silverstone. No, it wasn't Silverstone. But he got 4 podiums overall. He did get P6, so he got beat by Sainz overall. Obviously, his last race didn't help. I think he was lapped. He was lapped in Abu Dhabi. So, look, he's one to watch. And in terms of the British interest, when Hamilton, I mean, even now, but certainly when Hamilton goes, Russell and you can't look past Russell and Norris. I mean, these two are as good as it gets in the sport. Apart from the top two, they're as good as it gets in the sport. So I'm excited to see what McLaren do. Again, it's another one of these classic things. You just want to see multiple teams fighting. So if they do, Lando Norris is going to be right at the front, and I think he's cultivating enough of an edge. He's got that 1 lap pace, and his race strategy, his race craft is definitely coming up as well. So I'm excited to see what Lando Norris can do. P2. No, it's Lewis Hamilton, of course it is. 8 wins. I put in brackets 7 pole positions because he had 2. Obviously, he had pole position in both the sprint races before the sprint race, before the actual race. That makes sense. You know what I mean. So he had 5 pole positions really, and including Turkey as well. 17. It's crazy when you look at that number. 17 podiums, and obviously the last 4 races were like, that's where his season was, I think, for most of the year. I mean, certainly in the beginning, I keep forgetting he won 3 of the first 4 races. It was like, okay, cool, off we go. And then Monaco happened. I think Monaco and Baku really changed because the Mercedes car wasn't good in Monaco, and it really wasn't good in Baku either. And then they went to Austria, and Verstappen just disappeared, and the defeat in France was big. The upgrade and Cop's incident in Silverstone and the support he got for Silverstone and just the general galvanising effect of that race, that was where the championship changed. Obviously, mathematically, because obviously Verstappen lost 25 points. But I think mentally, that was where the championship turned from, after you, Max, to let's go. Because at the beginning, it wasn't really head-to-head, because Hamilton doesn't really do head-to-heads. It's not really about me versus him. It's about him trying to be as quick as he can. The team kind of does all that stuff for him. But I think this, obviously, last season turned into very much turned into me versus him. So, and then obviously throughout the season, had some bad luck, some good luck, a lot of good luck to be fair. And then the last, I mean, he had, as you know, Brazil, Qatar, Jeddah, flawless, and then Abu Dhabi, flawless until lap 51. Oh, the whole race was flawless. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong until turn 4 when he just let Verstappen drive up the inside. So every time I see it, I'm like, why didn't you just Obviously, it's easy for you to say, but you should it's the last lap, which I think does tell you about Hamilton's driving style. He's not an aggressive driver. Certainly when he's out in front. Because I'm watching season reviews from the old Hamilton. Old Hamilton. There's so many parallels. Again, another little tangent here. So many parallels between old Hamilton and young Verstappen. It's actually scary. It's actually scary how close and the kind of stuff they were saying. It's a different era. So obviously 2017, 18, 19, 20. Social media and the kind of the world as it is versus 2007, 8, 9. Young Hamilton was just angry, kind of me versus the world, sort of quite petulant, very fast, wheel to wheel. He's always going to make mistakes. But Verstappen come in. He was obviously there's so many fascinating parallels between the two. And I think before everyone piles on Verstappen, Hamilton was a different kind of young driver, and it's kind of irritating to see, even looking back as a fan. It's kind of see some stuff that you don't like so much. But in terms of 2021, there's plenty of stuff he could have done more. He could have done a lot more. But by the end of the season, it was like, listen, you won 3 races in a row. You come from last in the sprint race in Brazil. You handled the pressure in Qatar. You dominated there. You handled the pressure in Saudi Arabia and then Abu Dhabi. Can't really do much more apart from winning the thing. And that's why number 1, obviously, is Max Verstappen, who I said was ice cold. And he is. He impressed me a lot at many occasions. I keep thinking about that Saudi Arabia, that after that first red flag restart, where he dived down, sent it down the inside of Hamilton and Ocon to take the lead. That was Verstappen at his best. And there's been plenty. I mean, this is obviously old. I say old Verstappen, young Verstappen when he's 18, 19, 20, when he's making moves around the outside of Rosberg in Brazil and crazy stuff. When he at his best, he is absolutely outstanding. His level. It's hard to say if someone's level is higher than someone else. Obviously, we're comparing Hamilton and Verstappen here. It's hard to say someone's level is higher than the other person because they're in different cars. And obviously, Verstappen's 24, Hamilton's 37. It's difficult, but Verstappen is as good a racing driver as you will see. Now, in 2021 specifically, he came into the season, probably how he's come into other seasons. He's obviously got a fast car. They didn't know how fast. They're like, are Mercedes sandbagging? Are they really good? Are they really not? Bahrain happened. He made a mistake. He bottled Bahrain for sure. Imola, he made up for it. Kept Hamilton out on the outside. And then he kind of got beat quite convincingly a few more times. And then he kind of started to ramp it up. Started dominant. I mean, 3 out of the 4 race wins from Monaco. Obviously, Baku, he would have won if his tyre didn't blow up. And then the 2 Austria races, France. He was just running away with it. And then Silverstone happened. He gets spun out. That was obviously, as you know, predominantly Lewis's fault. It wasn't just Max was totally absolved of blame like with Baku. Even though Baku, they were running tyre pressures too low, so that's kind of their fault. But Silverstone, in terms of the lines, he could, to play devil's advocate, he could have left a little bit more room. Or he could have just picked his bat and gone, okay, Hamilton go through this time, I'm going to get him next time, because I think Red Bull had a faster car that weekend. They might have had a faster car that weekend. The race pace was really good. So take your losses, get your 18 points. That's what hindsight would have told you. And that's probably that's what Hamilton did throughout the season. So that Silverstone incident will make Verstappen better. Hopefully, I say hopefully, depends on who you support. If he learns from that, he'll be an even better driver. So, and then it kind of got a bit destabilised. He deserves so much credit for the way he dealt with Silverstone through the end of the season. Obviously, he had some outbursts, he had some this and that, and Lewis did this and that, and his team were just ridiculous in terms of what they were saying. But the way temperament-wise, and the way he handled the last 4 races, the way he handled his mistakes and all the driving issues he had, he deserves a lot of credit for keeping a level head, saying the right things. Obviously, he's young, so he's not going to be completely stoic, but for that age and for that amount of pressure and for those amount of eyeballs watching, that win in America was unbelievable. That win in America, I'm still putting that one. It's going to be top 3. I know that. I remember I saw a little brief list of his. Someone put a list of 5 most impressive wins, and America was on there. Spain. Granted, Spain, he was 18 years old, but the 2 best cars had crashed out, so he kind of did an Ocon in Hungary. Impressive, but I really think that America won, given the pressure he was under, and those 2 laps. I want to say lap 51 and 52. He just held the gap. He did enough to hold the gap those two laps, so that Hamilton could get in those 1 second. That for me, I'm still blown away by that. That video, I hope put a screenshot of it up somewhere. I don't know what it's going to be. At the time, I think right now it's 7 views away from 2,000, which is kind of crazy. So hopefully that's the first of many. So if you haven't seen that video, go watch it, get it to 2,000, and I'll be eternally grateful. 10 wins, 10 pole positions, 18 podiums. 4th youngest World Drivers' Champion. Forget about how he won it. That's the last time. I'm not here to talk about how he won it. The fact is, World Drivers' Champion, fully deserved. Fully deserved. Made the right call on the tyres. Sent it. This is the one big part of Abu Dhabi that gets overlooked. He sent it down the. Granted, he's got soft tyres on, but he still sent it where the gap wasn't there. I mean, the gap isn't there really, but only Max Verstappen can make that gap. And then he holds on down the straight. Obviously, a lot of weaving, which I don't like. And then they were neck and neck going into turn 9, into the bank turn 9. They were neck and neck. The Drivers' Championship with about 40. Well, what's the last sector? 22 seconds. 22 seconds of the season left, and they're neck and neck on points and in driving position. And he's got the nerve to still turn it in. Unbelievable. So. And I'm happy for him. I am actually happy for him to, believe it or not, I am actually happy for him that he won the Drivers' Championship, because he's going to win more. And this one, hopefully, if the right steps get taken, this kind of stuff won't happen again. And he's going to win. He's probably going to win. Well, he's going to win more World Championship, unless Red Bull give him a terrible car and he doesn't make the right moves. Fernando Alonso, it's a cautionary tale. Max Verstappen is either going to be a Sebastian Vettel or a Fernando Alonso. That's my quick hot take that I've literally just thought of just right now. So don't at me for it. But that's what I'm thinking. My point being, he's either going to run up load of wins and load of Drivers' Championship very, very quickly in a very good car, or he's going to make the wrong driver moves and end up like Alonso, very quick, only 2 World Drivers' Championships. He tried to make the move to get more, never quite got there. Alonso, he had double world champion, goes to McLaren, Hamilton beats him his rookie season, goes back to Renault for 2 more years. That was a stupid decision because the Renault weren't a good car those 2 times. Then he jumped to Ferrari. Granted, I've literally just watched 2010. Could have. I mean, I still don't know how he didn't win 2010. But he could have had another 2 World Drivers' Championships, and it just didn't work out for him quite that way. So it's either going to be one of those 2. But Verstappen, super impressive, and it's going to depend. His position in the all-time rankings, which I'm going to do a video on because I've done a lot of digging. I've done some actual refreshing of the stats because obviously recency bias is an amazing thing, and I've heard so many times that Max Verstappen is one of the greatest drivers we've ever seen. Like, I believe, I kind of hope that most of that comes from, if you actually bring up a list, he's in the top 20 now, but I think for newbies of F1, it's like, oh my God, top 20 all time. Go look at the list. First of all, relatively speaking, there's not that many world champions because of people like Hamilton and Schumacher winning 14 of them. He's in the conversation in terms of there's 20 of them, which in any other sport, the top 20 footballers of all time, you talk about absolute legends. But the top 20 in Formula One, the 2019th and 18th, I mean, you've got people who've won 1 or 2 World Drivers' Championships, so he's in there. I'm on the Sebastian Vettel hype. I've been on it from the beginning. I don't disrespect Sebastian Vettel like that. And there's so many drivers, like great drivers who've won so many races. Max Verstappen's going to statistically go down. I mean, my early prediction, I don't think he's going to catch Hamilton and Schumacher, because I think Hamilton will go for another 2 years and maybe win one more championship and a lot more races. To get to 100 is, I mean, he's going to have to really be in a good car for a long time from here. And there's so many good drivers. There's more and more. So Schumacher days is like 3 or 4, if even that. There's a couple of drivers who could win races. Then Hamilton era, there was obviously Raikkonen and Alonso, and Kubica was really good at the time. You had young Vettel, young Rosberg, people up in their game. And now you've still got the GOATs hanging around. You've got Alonso, Vettel and Hamilton. And now you've got Leclerc, Norris, Sainz, Gasly, Ocon, Russell, and everyone else. And then brand new people, Piastri coming through. So many new drivers. So it's going to be more difficult, as it always is, to win multiple championships. In any sport, every sport is finding it. You got Tom Brady and all these other sports where people rack up multiple Grand Slams. But as the standard gets better, it's harder to do. So Max Verstappen is going to be in that group, in the tier below Hamilton and Schumacher, for sure. I would say, unless something really drastic happens, I would expect him to be there. But in terms of 2021, that's my list. Max Verstappen, well deserved, World Driver Champion. Officially the end of me talking about 2021 in terms of any kind of recaps or any kind of things like that. 2022 is here. We've got new calendar, which I'm going to talk about, new circuits. Most importantly, we've got new drivers and we've got new cars. Even by any metric, this is one of the most exciting seasons in theory that we've ever had going into it. There's been a lot of seasons where we've had lots of world champions on the grid, a lot of cars that can theoretically compete. I think everyone's kind of excited to see. Well, the excitement could last up to the end of qualifying in Bahrain, or even the end of testing. But I think testing, you're not going to see much. End of qualifying, after Q3 in Bahrain on the 20th of March, that's when we're going to know, or the 18th of March, 19th of March, that's when we're going to know if the excitement is real or not. Because somebody, there's a lot of scenarios, somebody could show up, whether it's Mercedes or anyone else. I think if Ferrari show up and they're 3 seconds ahead, I don't think anyone's going to care, I'll be honest. So I think the idea that if someone really gets it right and dominates like Brawn in 2009, that people would be upset. I don't think they would be if it's not Mercedes, and probably Red Bull as well. I think if Max Verstappen shows up in 3 seconds clear, people aren't going to care this year, but then give it time. See Sebastian Vettel, see Michael Schumacher, see Lewis Hamilton. Give it time, they'll get sick of him too. But I think if you see Alpine, if Alonso or Gasly shows up 3 seconds clear, it's going to be lit. So I'm quite excited to see how that all pans out. Obviously, brand new rules. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a tech guy, but I do understand roughly what they're trying to go for. They just want the cars to follow closer. The simplest way of explaining it is the air that comes off a car is super hot and it's funneled to keep the car glued to the ground. It's funneled to go straight over the top wing and back. So if a car's following, you're going to get that hot turbulent air melting the tyres, screwing up the aerodynamics. What they want is, rather than the air going that way, they want the air to go that way. That's as simple as I can explain it. So if the air goes that way, the car's going to be able to drive behind it, basically. So that's what they're trying to do. They make the car smaller, make the car heavier, make the wings go, make the airflow go, all fancy little things like that. That's the gist of it. And we're going to get a lot of interesting designs, hopefully, in the coming seasons. Now, obviously, as you know, or may or may not know, last year they knew these new rules are coming in this year. So most of the teams, we don't know how many exactly, but we know teams like Haas for sure, Alpine for sure, and Aston Martin as well, didn't bother upgrading their car or focusing any development in 2021 because they're like, okay, new rules are coming in and we're going to put all our resources to that one. Forget about 2021, do what you want. We're just going to go out there and drive the car. But next year we're going to be ready. So people like Haas, who have released their car already, have had a whole year of 100% dedicated resources. Now, there's two schools of thoughts with with these new regulations, the smaller teams who have a smaller budget, even though there is a cost cap, but they have less money to spend, less top quality personnel and less top quality design ideas. If you put 100% of 5 into something, it's going to be 5. You're going to put all your effort into it. You're going to get 100% of that. But if Mercedes put 1% of a million, it's going to be much, much better than 100% of 5. And that, I know that's a crazy statistical example, but that's kind of the gist of what we're talking about. I mean, a million is extreme. Let's say 500. I just didn't want to get the maths right, to be honest. I didn't want to get the maths right on the spot. Didn't want to get the maths wrong even. You know, it's not quite a million, but it's a lot more. So if Mercedes put 35% or 45 or 55% of their significant resource into something, it's going to be better than Haas's small. I mean, Haas isn't literally 5, but so we are thinking, like, granted they've had a year to put all their resources into this car, but Mercedes' 50% is probably going to be better than Haas's 100%. So yes, Haas have had a little more time to put resources in, but all their resources might not be enough to match all the good teams. I mean, even Alpine, who used to be Renault, Aston Martin, big teams, McLaren. I think once everyone puts their resources in, I think the bigger teams will still be the bigger teams. It's highly unlikely, unless there is something extraordinary in the regulations, in the aero, something they've done in their car that makes their car go super quick. It's going to be the better teams at the front, generally speaking. Just the midfield, you'd expect the midfield and the front teams will bunch up a little bit. Now, another preface to that, even if Haas do make a car that's 2 seconds quicker, do you think Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin are going to be able to control that for a 22 race season? So even if they do make a car that's even hard, I mean, let's say a second quicker, half a second quicker, they're not going to win the Drivers' Championship. So Haas need 4-second gap. With the quality of their drivers as it so stands, if you're telling me Max Verstappen in a good Red Bull, Lewis Hamilton in a good Mercedes, versus this hyper-fast Haas at the hands of Nikita Mazepin, I know who my money is not on. So that's another bit of insight in terms of when you hear a lot about Haas have had, the smaller teams have had a lot more time. Yeah, they have, but you need the drivers to actually drive the car. I mean, Perez was in the best car for the whole season, and I didn't know where he finished, on the 4th, came P4 in the championship. So there's no automatic, okay, you got the fastest car, you're going to win. Contrary to popular belief, I say popular belief among trolls and the uneducated, that the best car equals winning. Doesn't quite do that. You need to be a very, very good driver first. You need to be able to handle the weekly media pressure, that's why Max Verstappen is the world champion. That's why it took the last 20 seconds of the championship, despite being in the best car and being basically the best driver, to beat someone like Lewis Hamilton. You need to be, there's so many factors go into it other than having a fast car. A fast car doesn't just mean, all right, off you go. You need to have a lot behind you. So the new cars are coming out. Haas have brought their new car out. This is what it looks like. To the uneducated, and to be honest, I'm in there with you as well. It looked very similar. Obviously, this is what they call a render. I say obviously, this is what they call a render. This is a computer-generated image. This isn't the actual car, and it wasn't a live stream. It looks basically the same as the show car, and to the completely uneducated, to the brand new people, welcome if you are brand new. It's going to look quite similar to the 2021 car. Obviously, you can see that wing at the back looks a bit different, and those two big AirPods in the middle are very different, and the front wing looks different, and you've got obviously the wheels are 18 inch, not 13. So Haas have brought their car out, or they've brought the livery out. That's not going to be what it looks like, but the general theme, the philosophy of the car is probably going to be like that, with some stuff edited in Photoshop. So when you see all these cars over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to go through the list. When you see all these cars, take not just a pinch of salt, go into the kitchen, grab your whole jug of salt, wherever you hold your salt in, and just pour it everywhere. That's how much salt you need with these car reveals. It's a brand new set of regulations. If it was last year they bring out the car, that's what it looks like, fine. Now there's you need to keep, it's basic poker, you're keeping the cards very close to your chest. You don't want to be like, all right, this is what our car looks like, this is the philosophy we've done. Because it's not easy to copy, but you wouldn't want to give your rival any advantage that they don't need already. So Red Bull are next Wednesday, Aston Martin next, then McLaren, AlphaTauri, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, and Alfa Romeo. At the minute, as of today, Williams haven't announced when their car's being revealed. So next week, the week after, and the week after that, the cars are going to start getting revealed. And then testing in Barcelona. Say testing, it is the literal definition of testing. It's called a shakedown, really. 23rd to 25th of Feb in Barcelona, where they always used to test the cars. That's closed off. There won't be any public or fans or people there. That literally is, go out and see if your car actually runs. The literal definition of testing. Go out and see if your car actually runs. Don't worry about time. Just get your car around, make sure it passes tests, and make sure it can actually go. The actual proper test that's going to be broadcast and have fans and timing and all that stuff is in Bahrain. That's in the 10th and 12th of March. That's more like free practice. So you've got testing in Barcelona. That's actual testing. They're like testing if the car actually works. Bahrain's going to be free practice -1 ahead of the actual Bahrain free practice session. So they're the kind of dates we're looking at. And obviously, given what we're expecting to see, I mean, it depends. It really, I think, to be honest, that first Barcelona actual shakedown testing session is going to be fascinating, because some cars probably think they got it right and they show up there and they've got it completely wrong, and then you've got just under a month to fix your car. So there is still plenty of time to get it right, even if you screw it up with your V1 iteration of what your car looks like. So the calendar for 2022 is looking, I mean, on paper, as exciting as I've ever seen. I mean, especially with some of these races at the beginning. I mentioned before, we're getting Saudi Arabia very soon. I hope they've fixed that track, and I hope they've fixed what they want to do, because that was a mess last time. Bahrain, as we always used to. Australia, I'm super excited to see, because any track we haven't been to in the last 2 years, any kind of like, the further we get away from these double headers at the same tracks and all the fun tracks not being on the calendar, that the new tracks or the historical old tracks are the ones I'm really excited to see. Australia's definitely one of them. Miami, who knows what that's going to be like. That could be fun. Monaco's obviously, well, on paper it's a good one, but it's never a good race. Canada, old school. Great Britain is going to take on more significance now, because you've got the Mercedes have two British drivers, so they're going to get a lot of support. Austria, one of my favourite tracks, but it's kind of hit and miss. Obviously, Max dominated twice there last year. Belgium, hopefully I want to see an actual race there. That'd be fun. Zandvoort, I'm excited to see again, because I mean, as far as an event, it was amazing. Singapore, can't wait to see Singapore again. Japan, about as classic again. Japan and Silverstone and Monza are like classic. Get the new cars around there. We want to see that ASAP. And then obviously the American leg, USA GP is going to be good again. Brazil, I always like Sao Paulo, always like Interlagos. Get Sao Paulo in there, and then Abu Dhabi again. It's almost like a dirty word, saying Abu Dhabi now, I swear. But that's going to be some exciting races. And it goes from all the way from March to November. I mean, obviously we're not going to touch into December this year, hopefully. But that's a lot of races, not a lot of time. 23 races, I think it was. It's going to be intense. It's going to be super intense, and I'm here for it, and we're going to be here for it every single week. Recaps, breakdowns. Going to add some new wrinkles to my videos this year, hopefully, and just grow, just learn. My overall thoughts going forward, just to wrap up this kind of like preview chat podcast, whatever you want to call it, is there's 3 different schools of thought. This is my final thought. There's 3 different schools of thought of how this new regulation is going to go. Best case, acceptable case, and worst case. Worst case scenario, we get 2014, or even 2020, if you want to call it that. One team, well, let's be honest. If Mercedes get it right, which they've got two of the 5 best drivers on the grid. They've won the constructors 8 years in a row. through all these different regulations changes, they've always got it right. And they won literally last year. So they had the best car last year, or overall, of course, 20 races. So, and they've got some of the best personnel. So history tells, logic tells anyone in any field that they could, should, maybe would be favourites, and they should be winning again this year. So if they get it right, and it's Hamilton, Russell, 1-2, like it was Rosberg, Hamilton, that'd probably be worst case scenario for Formula One. Even as a Mercedes fan, that'd probably be worst case scenario for Formula One, because then the regulations haven't really worked. Now, that's worst case scenario. Current scenario, which I think would be acceptable depending on who the teams are, is if there's two teams that get it right, and obviously the best drivers in each team, like with last year, are fighting it out for a championship. I think when you have two different teams, that's what you want, because that means there's 4 cars on the grid that can technically win a race, rather than just 1 or 2 cars, one team. I think if you asked all the Formula 1 fans, if you had McLaren versus Mercedes this year, and you had Lewis Hamilton, was it Lewis Hamilton and Daniel Ricciardo go for the World Championship, I think most people would take that. Take your bias out of it. Or George Russell, Lando Norris, whatever you want. If it's 2 teams and 2 drivers really elevated themselves, as Hamilton and Verstappen did, I think the majority would accept that. And I think that would be like, okay, cool, fine. As long as it's 2 teams, as long as it's 2 different drivers, fine. As long as it's not the same team. Best case scenario, we go back to 2010 and 2012, where you have multiple teams, typically 3. Like if you watch back, I've watched so far, for a bit of background, I've watched all the Formula One, the 3-4 hour race reviews, season reviews, from 96 now to 2011. And one thing I've noticed is there were some seasons, certainly in the 90s, this is what people always forget, in the 90s, Ferrari and or McLaren were a lap ahead of everybody apart from themselves. Most times. Like the 99, 2000, 2001, Ferrari lapped everybody, and it was only Ferrari or McLaren that were going to win races. Like only them two. And you have the Mercedes era, but there are some seasons like 2010, you had Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren. You had Vettel, Webber, Alonso, Massa, Hamilton, Button. And it was like 3 wins for him, 3 wins for him. Everyone gets 3 wins, and then whoever wins the last race wins the championship. That's what we want. That's what everybody wants. No matter who the guys are, and forget about the Max, Lewis, whatever you want to call it. If you had Alpine, McLaren, and Ferrari, that's box office. Even if you had Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, people would take that, because what you want is at any given day, 6 drivers can get pole position, half a second between 9 people, and strategy comes into play, racecraft comes into play, and individual driver ability comes into play. So what I personally would want, me being me, you'd want the best teams currently, because you don't want to see a Ferrari at the back or Mercedes at the back. The best teams currently, Mercedes, you want to see Ferrari. I mean, I want to see all of them, to be honest. I want to see, because I think the more you get used to seeing Haas at the back, you realise they're a crap car. But if they were right at the front, the car starts to look different, if that makes sense. Like once you see a crap car at the front, you're like, when you go back through the years, you see Renault nowhere, Red Bull nowhere through 2005, 6, 7, and suddenly Red Bull at the front, it just looks a better car. So you kind of get enthused by it more. So I've always been if you stick the cars at the front, they just look different. They look better. You put Pierre Gasly P4, so okay, that maybe the AlphaTauri is not so bad. So I want to see more teams compete. In theory, but in all categories, in all sports, you don't just get this parity. You don't get 32 teams trying to win the NFL, trying to win the Super Bowl. You get 7 or 8 that can win the Super Bowl. And then over the course of the season, they'll all get whittled down. You're not going to get 10 teams going for the Constructors' Championship. It just never works that way. You're going to get one team that's going to get horribly wrong, another couple of teams who just aren't quite as good, mainly because of their driver lineup. You're going to get maybe a team or 2 who just haven't got either the drivers or the capability to get into the podium and the winning positions as often as they'd like. So you're going to have 5 teams. That's ambitiously 5 teams that are going to that are good enough to win a race on any given Sunday. And out of those 5, it's going to depend on resource, experience, and strategy. And I'd like to see that. All the teams, new drivers winning races, strategy coming into play, and hopefully with the rules being updated, you know, driver standards, stewards, FIA, if they got that all right, and if the media sort of get their act together and sort of spin the things in the right way, it could be an all-timer. And hopefully it is. Hopefully it is for a different reason to last year. I think overall, I don't know what you guys are thinking. Overall last year, like, taking Abu Dhabi out of it, it was still pretty toxic, and they always are. And don't get it twisted. Like, when you watch these old seasons, this has happened before, and it will always continue to happen. Politics in Formula One, inter-driver battles, team bosses being moany, FIA intervening, weird penalties being handed out, crashes, controversies, car technical flexi wings. Like, it's funny because even 2008, 2009, Red Bull were doing the flexi wing, and then they were complaining to someone else. Everything that's happening now, don't get it twisted. Whether you're a new or an old fan, if you're an old fan, you'll definitely know what's happening now has always happened and will continue to happen. So don't get kind of swept up in the nausea of this is unknown, unprecedented stuff. Stop it. The drivers, they've always been doing this. The teams have always been doing this. But hopefully the rule parameters are going to set up exciting races, genuinely exciting races. So I'm really looking forward to it. As I'm sure you could tell by my enthusiasm. I mean, some of these races are going to be just some of these back-to-backs. I just can't wait to see how this all pans out. We're going to see some car reveals over the next couple of weeks. Then there's going to be the shakedown, the kind of testing, which you're going to get an idea of who's. I mean, someone is going to be like terrible, and someone's going to be really good. All the good teams are going to sandbag, so you don't expect to see whoever's leading the test in Barcelona. Don't necessarily assume they're the fastest, because if you've got a good car, you're not going to show your hand until Bahrain, because you've got a month between. Okay, you've got 3 weeks between the two tests. 3 weeks. Bahrain, end of testing in Bahrain, we're going to know, and then Q3, we're really going to know. So, thank you for watching. If you've got this far, obviously now new name, Turn 1. Chat is gone. It's Turn 1. It's all systems go for the year. We're going to be adding new stuff. I want to try and get as much engagement with you guys as possible, whether it's Twitter or Instagram. And just build. Like, it's year 2. Really, it's year 2, because we started pre-season last year. Year 2 of Formula One, in terms of speaking about it on YouTube. And we're just learning. I'm just watching old stuff, reading as much as I possibly can, and just trying to give you insight. Because I'm not really here to every week to be like, okay, Verstappen won the race, 5 seconds. It's more of an insight thing, because I feel like I'm at my best when I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. Because I'm not going to give you cap, I'm not going to give you nonsense. I'm going to just tell you what I think and try and be as impartial as possible. One thing I'm going to do is try and include more teams, because obviously, granted, the championship kind of got swept up and it was like, right, 2 people. So I was talking about Verstappen, Hamilton every single week. I'm going to try, hopefully, and talk about more drivers, even if they're not winning, and give you kind of an idea of where they're going and where I think they should be. So, much love for staying, and I will see you very soon.